Oh, come on. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Kris. This is part 4. This is the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad 62. Before we start, I just have to give out some bad news. The fireworks show at the end of today's episode will be canceled. Apparently, lighting off fireworks indoors is a fire hazard. Obama was here. He said something about he had to leave. His sailboat was ticketed in my driveway, so he had to leave. And I've been reaching out to Colonel Sanders, the Kentucky Fried Chicken original owner, creator, only to find out that he died in 1980. So I don't know who I was talking to, let alone sending my nude pictures to. So that backfired. So it's just me. No special guests. Sorry. Before we get started, you can click that thumbs up and subscribe. It's awesome. Helps me out. Clicky, 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 click. That's all it takes. Sound effects is strictly your choice. If you would like to sponsor a video, because this video is sponsored by Yasin Muhammad. Do you want to sponsor a video? I have a thanks button down here. Click on that. Throw money at the channel. Request a video. You can still request without donating. It just takes a little more time. I get to the people who donate first because I thank them for that. All right, we're going to end this video. Just me, but we're going to end it. I got some more pie because I'm a pig. Sorry.
And in any case, the Ansar gave him all of the money back. In any case, because that's what the Prophet had told them. So Abu al-As took all of this money and he returned back to Mecca, and he returned every single amana back to its rightful owner, and he asked the people of Mecca, has anybody given me anything that remains? And so they all said, no, Jazakallah, you have done your job, excellent. And in the whole caravan, it was only Abu al-As who managed to return the money to its owners, right? As soon as all of that had taken place, then in front of the Quraysh, he said, now, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That he didn't want to accept Islam in Medina. Why? Because somebody's going to say, you did it for the money, you did it for the life, you did it for this and that. Now that I've gotten rid of all of my obligations and nobody can accuse me, I'm a free man back in my hometown, let me embrace Islam publicly. And Abu al-As, his great-grandfather is Abd al-Shams. He is lineage of Quraysh. You cannot harm a hair on his head. Abu al-As is from the stock of the Quraysh. This is hardcore Qurayshi, right? You cannot touch Abu al-As. And so Abu al-As has the audacity and the courage and the guts to announce his shahada in front of the Kaaba, and he then returns back to Medina as a Muslim. And so they are then reunited. Now, this story could be problematic for two reasons, both of which are related, so pay attention to this. The first issue is that when he is captured as a POW, as a prisoner, clearly he's not a Muslim at the time. And the Prophet ﷺ frees him or lets him go basically on the presumption that the two of them are still married. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, when he did free, he said to Zainab, this man is a mushrik, so he is not allowed for you. فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَحِلُّ لَكِ. So they didn't live together at that time. That's only when he came back as a Muslim. But still, is there a marriage at this time or not? And even more problematic, which is where all of the fiqh comes in, the real fiqh problem is, when he did return back to Medina, the hadith in Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi and Nisa'i, the authentic hadith says that the Prophet ﷺ returned him to her without a mahr. Means without a nikah. There was no new nikah done. The Prophet ﷺ returned him to her without a new nikah. Why is this problematic? It is problematic because we all know in fiqh that when the wife converts to Islam and the husband does not, what happens to the marriage contract? It is annulled. And if the husband accepts Islam within the iddah of the wife, whether it is 1 month or 3 months, there's an ikhtilaf, but the correct opinion is 1 month. It is one menstrual cycle, by the way. There's a point of fiqh. If there's a non-Muslim couple. Now obviously, if the husband embraces Islam, that is less problematic. Why? Because a Christian or a Jewish wife can remain. Now, obviously, a pagan wife could not remain, but a Christian or Jewish wife can remain. So that's not a problem. But the other way around is problematic. You have a non-Muslim couple, the wife embraces Islam, and the husband does not embrace. Technically, in a Sharia caliphate system, what would we do? And even in private, even in America, we will advise a woman this, but it's up to her what she wants to do. We can't do anything, it's up to her. But we will advise a woman if she converts in this land and her husband does not convert, that look, he is not allowed for you. He is not your husband Shari'i wise. He's not your husband anymore, right? So according to the madhahib, basically, in this iddah, if he converts, no problem. So she has 1 month iddah. If he converts in 2 weeks, no problem. Khalas, the two of them are married. If he doesn't convert after 1 month, what happens to the marriage? Null and void, right? And if he wants her back after conversion, majority of scholars say, what? New marriage, new nikah, new mahr. And that's the majority position, by the way, right? This hadith is problematic because it explicitly says without a new mahr, without a new nikah contract. Now, to make a long story short, so the majority have interpreted this hadith here and there, and they still hold their position that if a woman converts after 1 month, her marriage is broken. If her husband wants to return to her, her ex-husband we should say, then a new nikah and a new mahr is needed after he accepts Islam. However, there is a minority dissenting opinion, and it was championed by many people, and Ibn Taymiyyah is one of them. And that is, and this is an interesting case, this is a trivia question. It's a very unique scenario. He said, and wallahi the evidences seem to suggest that, so this is my position as well, that such a woman is in a unique scenario and situation. If she wants, she can marry anybody she wants with a new nikah and a new mahr. Any Muslim she wants. Right? After the iddah is over, now she can marry any Muslim who proposes he wants to marry. She wants to marry, she marries him. And if her husband embraces Islam and she has not married in the meantime, then she may resume marital life with him without a new nikah or mahr. So she's in an interesting scenario in that her ex-husband becomes halal without a marriage contract, without a mahr, without a nikah, if they both agree for this. And so they say this is the trick question: what woman is there who can marry without a nikah, without a mahr or whatnot? She can get married in a situation that's very unique, basically, right? Now, obviously, there are many conditions here. Of them, she didn't marry somebody else, obviously, right? If she marries somebody else, then khalas, that is permanently broken, right? Of them is that the husband eventually converts, right? Because in this case, at least 3-4 years have gone by. And Abu al-As has not converted. And Zainab has not remarried. When he does convert, the Prophet simply allows them to resume married life. And this shows us that, inshallah, this is the correct position, and it's really common sense. It doesn't, it's a very, you understand the fiqh behind it, it's very simple, that this is called the ankihat al-kuffar, the marriage contract of the non-Muslims, what is to be done. And by the way, another point here just...
I think it helps the fact that she didn't move on. She was kind of, he waited 4 years, 5 years. She didn't move on. She considered him still her husband. So she was waiting, and I think if she's turning down other marital suitors, other husbands, and she just has her mind set that he'll come around, or she loves him so much. I think he probably saw that when he converted or reverted, however the phrasing is, it was like there's no reason to make them go through the whole thing again, because they never really stopped. They were distant, but they both continued to understand that he wasn't converting and she wasn't moving on. So I think that's understandable. Had she started to talk to other people, go out on dates, however the thing, or she had agreed to marry somebody, that's different. and she is willing to move on. I think her willingness to not move on probably set the understanding that these two are still, they're together. They're right for each other.
While we're mentioning this, a fiqh point, and we just have one story left anyway, so inshallah we have some time. The fiqh point here, if a couple, non-Muslim couple, converts simultaneously, by unanimous consensus of all of the scholars of Islam, they do not need to redo their nikah in an Islamic manner. And this is something that only some overzealous, ignorant Muslims require. If two non-Muslims convert, and they were married, this is the key. Obviously, if it's boyfriend, girlfriend, we're not going to accept this. They were married in however their culture or society deemed them to be married. However, whether they were pagans, whether they were Buddhists, whether they were Christian, whatever they were, if they both convert, then their marriage contract will be automatically transferred as an Islamic one, even if the conditions of nikah were not met when it was done. There was no wali, or there was no it's all irrelevant. And how do we know this? As Ibn Hajar and the Shawkani and others say, in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, thousands of couples converted. And never once did any Muslim say, how did you guys get married? And what happened in your marriage? And let me do the checklist here. It was accepted, right? So marriages of the non-Muslims, when they convert, those marriages are valid however they occurred. And this we learned from the seerah and from this incident as well. The final mini story, and this is...
That's also a way of just, how do I phrase it? They're married. They converted, fine. It stops you from getting into someone's business when you don't need to. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, asking all these questions, you're just kind of like, if you're somebody who does convert or revert, the first thing you don't want is, okay, how long have you two been married? When did you get married? Da, da, da. Okay, well, it's all non-valid here. It's invalid. You got to do it all over again. People might be like, what? And then to be asked all the questions, it feels like somebody's prying into your business. Like, I think that's just an easy way of saying, you two are married? You got married before? Cool. You're still married. It's just kind of like a checklist, and you're just saying this is something we're just gonna check off. That's not important, especially if they do it together. It's just not important. Hey, are we done? I'm trying to film. Thank you. Shut your faces.
It's just an interesting story for the fiqh of food, actually. That's really what it's famous for. And then, inshallah, next week we will do the Battle of Khaybar, inshallah ta'ala. Or sorry, the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah before the Battle of Khaybar. The final story, the Sariyatul Khabat. The Sariyatul Khabat. And Khabat is the withered leaves that are on the thorn shrubs. The withered leaves is called Khabat. And it is called Sariyatul Khabat because the Sahaba were forced to eat Khabat. So what is this story? Sometime before the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah, we don't know exactly when, the Prophet ﷺ sent another large caravan to intercept the Quraysh. We don't have any other details. Were they coming up or going down? Most likely this would have been the one that when they're going up to Syria, and then the Sariyah of Zayd was when they were coming back down. Allah knows best. So he sent a large expedition of 300 men to attempt to intervene, to intercede, to block the caravan of the Quraysh. However, they were not successful. And the Quraysh managed to elude them, and because of this, the Muslims, when they tried to chase and whatnot, eventually they ran out of supplies. The supplies dwindled, and eventually the supplies ran very, very low. Their leader was Abu Ubaidah Amir ibn al-Jarrah, and so when the supplies became critical, Abu Ubaidah commanded everybody to give any food that they have. And so all of the food of the army was collected, and then he began rationing. Everybody gets the exact same amount. And the ration continued to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle until finally they had 1 date per person per day. And then even that ran out. And Jabir ibn Abdullah narrates, and the hadith is in many books including Bukhari, that they would have to put the date seeds, they kept the date seeds. They would put the date seeds in their mouth and suck on it throughout the day. and they would drink water with the date seed there so that they get some type of psychological taste there. And they were forced to eat khabat. And khabat is basically the thorn bush. It has those dried, withered leaves. They would have to pluck those and eat those khabat just to, basically survive. And eventually they made their way to the shore. There is a city close to Medina. In our times, it'll take you like 2 hours to drive, not that far, called Yambur. And it is a petroleum city there. It's close to Medina. It's on the shore. So they made their way close to Yambur. And lo and behold, they found that massive whale. Most likely reading it, this is a blue whale. This is one of the biggest creatures on earth, because the way that the hadith describe it, it is simply unbelievable, right? And Allah gifted them this basically. They found this massive whale, they said, the likes of which we had never seen before. And there are so many stories, they say, I forgot now the riwayah Bukhari, was it 13 or 14 Sahaba sat in the eye socket of the whale. Just the eye. You have 13 men sitting in that bone of the eye, right? And they took one of the bones of the whale and they planted it on the beach. And Abu Ubaidah chose the largest camel. And he sat on that camel and he managed to walk right underneath the bone without having to lower his head. This is like 20 feet we're talking about, or not 20, maybe 15 feet, because a camel as it is. And on top of that, Abu Ubaidah is sitting and he doesn't have to lower his head. This is the bone sticking out from the ground. Clearly, this is one of those massive whales that, and they called it ambar. We don't know what type it is in our time. And they rejoiced so much that they camped 1 month because of the whale. Cut them some slack. We would have probably stayed 2 months. Okay? They were so happy. They're about to die of starvation that they camped 1 month and they actually gained fat. And they continued to eat of this whale. 300 people eating 1 month of this whale, until finally they decide to go back and they pack their bags with the meat and they go back to Medina, and they tell the Prophet ﷺ what happened, and they asked him what we did, was it permissible or not? And subhanAllah, they're worried. We ate a dead animal, right? Even though in the Sharia it's allowed to eat dead animals in the case of darura, but they're worried and they're confirming, is it halal for us to eat this animal? And so the Prophet ﷺ said, do you have any meat of it left? They said yes. He said, bring it to me. And so, according to my humble knowledge, and I could be mistaken, but as far as I know, the one and only time the Prophet ﷺ ate seafood was this time. The one and only time he tasted seafood. Now, why did he eat in front the meat? To demonstrate for them that it is completely halal to eat seafood. Completely halal to eat seafood. And by the way, this also
I'm wondering if he's going to say it. Hold on, let me unpause it just to listen to what he says.
Shows us that seafood does not require slaughter. In fact, it doesn't even require to be caught, because they did not catch the whale. The whale was dead already.
I was just going to say, in survival, you're probably given a little more leniency in terms of what you're going to eat, because it's survival, I know there are some exceptions that if you have to, if you're starving or something like that and somebody has bacon and there really isn't any other option, I know you can eat pig or stuff like that, but I would say this is probably one of those moments.
And this clearly shows us that a sea creature, any creature from the sea, and this is the vast majority opinion, only the Hanafi madhab has a disagreement here, with all respect to them. The other three madhahib say everything from the sea, shrimps and crustaceans and crabs and squid and eel and whatnot, everything you can think of that comes from the sea is halal, because whale is not a fish, it is a mammal. A whale is technically not a fish, as we know. It is a mammal. And our Prophet ﷺ ate of that whale. And our Prophet ﷺ said, أُحِلَّتْ لَنَا مَيْتَتَانِ وَدَمَانِ فَأَمَّا الْمَيْتَتَانِ فَالْجَرَادُ وَالْحُوتِ وَأَمَّا الدَّمَانِ فَالْكِبِدُ وَالطُّحَالِ. That the Prophet ﷺ said, 2 dead animals are allowed for us. We don't have to slaughter them. Number 1, jarad, locusts. And number 2, al-hut, the whale. And by mentioning the whale, he intentionally wanted to give the biggest creature from the sea to tell us, if the biggest creature is halal, how about the smaller creatures? If this massive whale is halal, how about the smaller creature? And Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 96, أُحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ صَيْدُ الْبَحْرِ وَطَعَامُهُ مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِلسَّيَّارَةِ. That the catch of the ocean is halal for you. أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ صَيْدُ الْبَحْرِ وَطَعَامُهُ, and the food of the ocean. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, صَيْدُ الْبَحْرِ is what you catch. طَعَامُ الْبَحْرِ, what is dead and it throws at you. Both what you catch and what is dead. Right? If you catch it, then you kill it. Even if you didn't kill it, it is halal. And therefore, and this is, in my humble opinion, very clear, that all types of seafood, all animals that live in the ocean are halal for us, regardless of how they got on the table, regardless of who captured them, how they were captured, whether they were dead, whatnot. They are all halal. And this is the main point of this tradition, of this incident. And then we just conclude by pointing out that it was also during this time, the 5th year and the 6th year of the Hijrah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the legislation of hijab. Hijab came down around this time, and also the Prophet ﷺ married Zainab bint Jahsh at this time. And the story of the marriage of Zainab is, in my humble opinion, frankly, the most controversial story out of the seerah. This is the most controversial. Number 2 is something else. I mean, whatever it might be. But number 1 is Zainab. And I am debating whether to have an entire halaqah now or to delay, because as you know, when we finish the seerah, I already said this, we're going to have a whole series about the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. It might be better to delay this story there, but we will see inshallah. But around this time, in the 5th year of the Hijrah, the Prophet married Zainab binti Jahsh. And then we just conclude by saying, according to some authorities, our Prophet ﷺ sent 14 sariyas and participated in 2 ghazwas between Khandaq and Hudaybiyyah, which is what we just covered. We only covered 4 or 5 of them. The rest of them are mentioned in Ibn Ishaq. They're all there, but frankly, even though this is alhamdulillah an advanced class, there's got to be some levels and details we leave out. These are simply names and who fought against whom and how many people died, and frankly most of us would not know these tribes and they would not be relevant to us. So whoever wants to look them up, they can look them up in Ibn Ishaq. They're not even translated to English. Any seerah book in English really does not mention all of these 14 and whatnot, because it really is something that only the very advanced students of knowledge and scholars will benefit from. And as for us, I think I have summarized. I chose today, all day I was just setting which ones to tell you. I chose these 4 or 5, and I decided the rest of them will just summarize that they took place, and inshallah we'll continue next Wednesday.
That kind of ended a little more abruptly than I was expecting. Okay. Yay, video. That's the best I can give you, you know. So, I'm going to cover 63 next. That's all I can give you. Well, it's 7:20. I got to be in bed about 7:30. 8 o'clock actually, because I have to get up at 2:30. Because I have to work early. Because we have a winter advisory coming through. We can get 3 to 5 inches, up to 8 inches, but then the roads are going to be kind of garbage Thursday and then potentially Friday. So I did 52 hours last week, and I'm on pace for like 49 this week. I'm just tired. I'm just tired. All right. Well, I'm going to end this here. Enough of my whining. But I hope you enjoyed. I did. I always enjoyed Dr. Yasser. So until next time, have a good day, have a good night. What are you looking at? Hey, what are you looking at? There you go. All right. That was what I wanted to do. Have a good day. Have a good night.